Welcome, writers, readers, and friends to the Authors Talking Bookish podcast. I'm Donna Norman Carbone, author of All That Is Sacred.
And I'm Hope Gibbs, author of Where the Grass Grows Blue.
We're two debut writers traditionally published by a small publishing house, bringing to you all the experiences that we as authors learn the hard way, so you don't have to.
We'll give you insights from the inception of a book idea to publication and beyond. And along the way, we'll share our love of books from the writer's perspective.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 65. Today, we're talking about the right path, conquering writer's block and writer's burnout. My name is Donna Carbone, and I'm joined by Hope Gibbs. Hi, Hope. How are you?
Hey, Donna. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Hopefully winter is winding down. I'm tired of it and ready for spring.
Well, the groundhog did see his shadow, so I'm not going to think it is spring until at least late April, because we can get really warm weather in March and thinking, oh, winter's gone, and then we get hit again. So
yeah, same here in the Northeast. What are you reading these days?
Well, I was approached to read an advanced reader copy. Now, this book has already been released since I read it, but I just absolutely loved it. It is called Step by Step. It is the second book in the Desperate Heart series, and it is from Twyla Mason. And Twyla is a writer at Red Adept, where you and I both write. And she reached out to see, if people would be willing to give a blurb, and I said I would. And it is such a good book. It is about second chances, and not just a second chance at love. It's about a second chance at life. And the main character, she is newly sober, and she is feeling a lot of anxiety about, her past, because she's this artist and she's got a great opportunity to paint a mural in Chicago that could really change her life. And the characters are real. That's the thing, because when I wrote in my blurb, I talked about the authenticity of these characters. They really felt fleshed out, and it's just a great book. I highly suggest. I mean, it's romance a little bit, but it also touches on some very, very hard topics. I mean, the main character had a hard childhood, and but because the characters are so authentically written, it makes you care about them even more. So congratulations to Twyla, and I hope everyone will go and grab it. They've got a paperback, and also you can get it on Kindle Unlimited.
Awesome. Sounds like a great book.
It is. So what about you?
It's connectable. Well, you mentioned the idea of authenticity. I have been reading books to help me with my most current developmental edit for my new book, The Echoing Past. So I actually reread both of these. I've read them before. Many Lives, Many Masters, which is about hypnotherapy by Dr. Brian Weiss, and A Writer's Diary by Virginia Woolf. And the reason that I reread these is because there is a past life component in my book. And that's what Brian Weiss's work is on. So if you're interested in past lives, he does a lot of case studies in there, which I took that as like a model of some of the terms that I want to use and kind of the procedure that I use in my book. And then in terms of Virginia Woolf's diary, first of all, I'm a huge Virginia Woolf fan. So I take every opportunity to reread her books, but there is a character in the early 19th century the early 20th century, who I needed just to kind of get like a cadence of language during that time. I know from teaching that Victorian language is, lots of flowery words and complex sentences. And I really just wanted to reread that to put me in the mindset when I had to write out a portion of the book from that character's perspective. So yeah, sometimes we read for work.
Yes, I actually read a book when I was on vacation during Christmas, and the way that she writes, the way she composes her sentences, and how she has the world building, I was inspired. I will
Mm,
say it definitely helped me because I'm like, I want to write a sentence like that.
yeah.
And so I'll talk about that book on our next podcast. But that's a great lead in to what we're getting ready to discuss today.
Mhm,
Today we're going to talk about what the difference between writer's block, which I think most people have heard of. I've
mhm,
experienced it. And then another thing called writer's or author's burnout.
mhm.
Kind of, I'm kind of struggling with currently. I have been for the past few months. And we're going to talk about the differences and what they are and signs to look out for, but 10 ways that could possibly help get you out of a writer's block, or in my case, like a author burnout. So, Donna, why don't you start? What is the definition of a writer's block?
So, writer's block is the temporary inability to produce writing for various reasons. Um, Sometimes it's because you have high levels of perfectionism, you're afraid to fail, you're not sure where your story's going, or maybe there are external distractions that are pulling you away from your story. Writer's block is very common, and a lot of writers will look at a blank page and not know where we're going. Um, but it's usually temporary. It's usually something that we can get ourselves out of.
Have you ever experienced writer's block?
You know, I think in thinking about the topic for this podcast, I think sometimes I rarely stare at a screen because I have a method that is pretty foolproof. And I know I've mentioned it before, but I'll share it again for anybody who hasn't heard it. I don't ever end a writing session at the end of something where I don't know where the scene is going next. Um, and I do that so when I'm like eager to get back into the writing, which I can do pretty easily because I know exactly where it's going. And then you kind of get into this flow. So I think that really helps alleviate writer's block in terms of staring at the screen.
Yeah.
But there have been times that I've kind of been between a writer's block and a writer's burnout where I have to kind of walk away from a project for a little while in order to revisit it. Um, and, I think experiencing some of the burnout characteristics that you're going to share with our readers now.
Yeah. So we talked about writer's block. So this is what a writer's burnout will be kind of like. It's more of a chronic state of mental, emotional, and kind of physical exhaustion, um, resulting from maybe stress or demands related to writing. You can also it's pressure to meet deadlines or lack of a life balance where you're thinking too much about writing and your home life might not be where you want it to be, and a lot of lack of breaks. It can be a longer recovery time than what we're talking about with the writer's block, and it requires kind of reevaluating your writing habits. There can be some fatigue with it. You can have disinterest of writing, actual anxiety about writing. You can have headaches and insomnia, and it's more common than most people even admit to. And I am here to admit I've not had insomnia or headaches, but
Mm,
I have had some extreme anxiety about my second book. It's finished. I have been very close with it. I don't let people read it, but I didn't with my first book just because I didn't have a community.
mhm,
But it's also, I think I'm struggling too much with making sure that every sentence is perfect
mhm.
before I try to put it out there. And it's become too overwhelming where then I start questioning the story itself. And I have all these ideas.
Mm,
It's almost like a crippling thing. I can find something else to do other than
mhm,
sit down and writing. And it's something that I have been struggling with. And when you suggested this episode, and I'm
mm,
kind of the lead researcher on this one,
mm.
um, I think it's really helped me because it made me start looking for solutions instead of my solution is procrastination.
Yeah. I wrote a blog post about the pressures of finishing a second book
Mhm.
after you've had your first book published. And I feel like that's a really common phenomenon. because I think, you get this book published, which you weren't sure you were going to do. So
Yes.
everything is wonderful and icing on the cake. And then you start working on your second book and you're like, oh my God, like, was I a one-hit wonder? Is this
Yeah.
going to measure up? I need to make sure this is better than the first. Are
Yes.
my readers going to like it because maybe it's different than the first? So you're right. Like there's so much I think weighing on authors' shoulders, especially between the first and the second book.
Yeah. And
I'm not having as much of that between the second and the third. I will.
Well, with my first book and with I think a lot of authors, you're writing your first book, people really don't know what you're doing. But
No.
then now that you have, I have a website, I have Instagram, I have this, it definitely has put the pressure on. And so I knew deep down, and I think you knew deep down, that I have been hesitant about my second book.
Mhm.
And I think that's one reason you might have suggested this. But when I started looking into it, it is a real thing. And it's
Yeah.
not something to be ashamed of. It
No.
happens to lots of people. So there are some warning signs. Do you want to talk about some warning signs to look out for, Donna?
Sure. Persistent fatigue, both mental and physical, affecting your productivity. A lack of interest in current writing projects, leaving you uninspired. Fear of failure, that the bars you form are even starting to be unattainable. And then the last one is reluctance to share your work or engage with other writers.
Yeah. And I can go check, check,
Yeah.
check, check. And
Yeah.
again, it's not debilitating. I'm still writing in other forms and fashion, but it is something that has taken me. It's been something I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
But as with anything, with a problem, there are solutions.
Yeah.
And so by doing a deep dive and on our show notes that we always have, I've included 3 articles that I got some of these ideas from, and I found them very beneficial. So, when you're on the website, click on those. The first solution, because, that's something that, we're praying that does happen, is just to take a break. And unfortunately, I've taken a little bit too long of a break, but just step away, allow yourself a hiatus, recharge, and find some things that bring you joy. Maybe loved ones, maybe a hobby. And this time can maybe just give your brain, give your that little voice in the back of your head saying, "Why aren't you writing?" It
Mm.
gives you just a way of saying, "I just need to step away."
Yeah. Yeah, I think a break is important. And that's something that if I'm starting to feel like a writer burnout or a writer block, that's exactly what I do. I take a break. Maybe I read a book. Maybe I start a different writing project. Um, a break is definitely necessary for me in my writing routine.
Yeah. So another thing is how to get inspired again. Donna, talk about this. How can you get inspired again by finding a routine?
Yeah, I think a routine that works for you. It's funny, we talked in our last episode with an author, Linda Rosen, who admitted that she has no writing routine. And I really wouldn't say that I have a writing routine, although I go through periods of having a writing routine. So when I got these developmental edits back from my third book, I came home almost every single day after school and worked for an hour or two. And then on the weekend, I try to get like maybe up to 4 hours in a day. It depending on my social schedule, I'm not super strict on the weekends, but I always write at least one day. So I do go through periods of scheduling, but I also allow myself grace to step away from it and live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another idea that can help you is shake up your environment. Now, I have done this before, and I it does help me by not just writing where you normally do. Maybe go to a cafe or go outside, go to a park, or if you're near a beach, go somewhere different. Just a different sense, an environment shake up can inspire you. And I will say that when I do write, sometimes I will go to a restaurant or like a place where I can have a cup of coffee. And it does help.
Yeah.
And there are studies that do suggest that writing in a busy environment can help you focus. And so I also like to write outside. If I could be at a beach, that's one of my favorite
Yeah.
places to write. Do you ever shake up your writing environment?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I'm with you. I think my two favorite ways to do this are at a beach. I can always write with the beach. It is so inspiring to me in so many ways. But another thing is, I've often gone away with my family, whether it's, my husband is skiing or we go to Disney World. And, like I just need a day to decompress. So I'll always stay behind for a day and give myself a writing day
Yeah.
in the hotel or, wherever we are, and let them go ahead and enjoy the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything like that I'm up for too. I've always been inquisitive about people who say that they rent a hotel room for a weekend and go and just do like a writer's retreat for themselves. I've always thought about doing that and I haven't, but I would like to. I'm very curious about it.
I like that idea. Okay, how about this idea? Engage with other creative works. Perhaps watch movies that might inspire you, or binge watch a TV series. Maybe some music, some compelling music, or even visit an art gallery or a museum. You could try needlepoint or go to the kitchen and try out new recipes. Just a different artistic way of inspiring you. And I will say, I have been inspired by some TV shows that I have
Mm.
recently been watching, and I'm like, "Oh, what if I write something in that genre?" And it really can. I know, people say, "Oh, don't watch TV. It'll turn your brain to mush," but it really has inspired me. A couple of shows. One is called Best Medicine. It's on
Mhm.
Fox. It's a sweet little, fish out of water story with a little romance. It's just so happy and with a little snark, and I'm like, "Oh, I like that."
Mm. Yeah. I'm always inspired by things I watch on TV and movies. I always think about, I don't know, Harlan Coben is not somebody that I read. I'm not really a mystery slash thriller writer, but I do like, I've watched two of his TV shows, two of his adaptations. The most recent was Runaway, but I always find myself very curious about taking like little pieces of his work and kind of weaving it into mine. So my next book um has a little Harlan Coben-esque sort of,
Oh,
I don't know, feature to it, I think, because I was inspired by those two shows.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about you take this next one?
Sure. Free write. Give yourself permission to write without constraints. I do this all the time. If I have a hard time, whether it's writer's block or writer's burnout, I step away. I write in my journal. I write a blog, or I write something very uncharacteristic of the kinds of novels that I write, just to kind of exercise my writing brain, but not feel like it's work. And I watched an interview with Virginia Evans, who is the author of The Correspondent, which is getting so much buzz
Yeah.
lately. And I think she was interviewed by Katie Couric, if I'm not mistaken. But she said that her book, The Correspondent, was a palate cleanser. And
Mhm.
I absolutely love that term. I wanted to share it with our listeners. Um, she started it because she felt like she was stuck in a rut. And so she started kind of imagining this character writing letters to and then receiving letters from other people, and it kind of came together, and she gave it to her agent and said, I don't think you're going to like this, but just take a look at it and see what you think. And her agent absolutely loved it, and it's on all the bestseller lists. I've read it and it's amazing. I've only heard really good reviews about it. So I thought that idea of a palate cleanser is really interesting. And you may start off with a palate cleanser, something that you have no intention of publishing, that may become a great work like this one.
Yeah. So that's a great idea. Another idea is to set smaller goals, baby steps. Don't overwhelm yourself with the expectation of writing an entire chapter or an article. Focus on something smaller, something maybe, again, just writing for 15 minutes or just a single paragraph. So don't think, oh, I have to finish a chapter or I need to be at this word count. I think word counts, especially if you're going through burnout like I am, if I'm sitting here saying, "Oh, I have to have 2,000 words a day," it might as well be 20,000 words a
Yeah.
day. So I do
Well,
like the let's just write a paragraph. Let's just write a sentence.
yeah. I think when you put a limit on yourself like that, sometimes it's beneficial, but I think most of the time you're thinking more about getting to the word count than you are like the creative
Yeah.
process, which is what we love so much about writing. So I think that that is, can yeah, limit you. Definitely, I can see that.
Donna, why don't you talk about this next step?
Sure, finding your people, connecting with your writers. Um, just honestly sharing, like Hope and I are doing right now, sharing about where we are in our writing and getting little golden nuggets from each other to help, move forward, or sometimes just, cheering each other on and saying, I know that you can do this. I think it is so beneficial. And I know as debut authors, neither one of us really had a community. And so we've said it over and over again, like how important community is. And we have developed a community along the way. And that's something that I really think would be beneficial.
Yeah. I don't know what I would do without you,
Yes,
especially
ditto.
right now.
Yeah.
Another step that I think is really important is simple. Read, read, read. Um, Reading can be a powerful tool in writer's burnout. Read fiction, nonfiction, poetry, even essays that can kind of expose you to different styles and voices and ideas, and it can spark creativity. Like I said, after reading
Mm.
this book, uh, Mad Wives, it made me, the story, I love the story, but I loved her
The
sentences, the
writing of
way
it.
she
Yeah.
created, and it inspired me, and I also loved the time period that she was writing in. So, I will say that the reading over the holidays, has kind of given me a new little spark, and, that's a great tool of just
Yeah.
and reading outside of what you normally write.
Right. Yeah. I always find I'm either a prolific reader or a prolific writer. I'm never both at the same
Mhm.
time. So if I'm heavy into writing, I'm not going to be reading a whole lot. It'll take me weeks to finish a book.
Yeah,
If I'm not like in the throes of a writing project, I could read a book in 2 or 3 days.
yeah,
And I think both of them kind of help me with the other.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, another idea. You wanna talk about this one, Donna?
Sure, get moving, get outside, take a walk, engage in some physical activity, running, walking, yoga, anything. I like to meditate, which that's not physical, it's more of a mental thing, but even like meditating, I think is very helpful to kind of release stress. Anything that involves your mind and your body, I think is stress relieving.
Yeah, and we're not saying go run a half marathon, but there's
No.
studies that show just by walking outside,
Yeah.
it stimulates the brain into a more
Mhm.
creative state. And I will say, especially when I was writing and I was also editing my first book, I did a lot of just walking, and
Mhm.
just being within nature. And, right now it's not always conducive to walk outside in
Mm.
Tennessee, but that is an idea, just physically getting your body moving.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much noise around us with, social media and everything. I you just need thinking time. And
Mhm.
I think physical activity allows you time for thinking.
Yeah,
I sometimes will get an entire paragraph in my head while I'm outside or walking or whatever,
yeah,
and I'll come inside and add it to my notes.
yeah.
Very inspiring.
So, and surprisingly, this was another suggestion: is get inspired with food. Dark
Mhm.
chocolate contains magnesium that improves your blood flow to your brain, and spinach and kale and edamame are also high in magnesium, which helps with stress. Did not know yogurt and sauerkraut because they're
Mm.
fermented. They're great because they help your gut, which is directly linked to your mood and boosting your mood. And salmon, even though I don't love salmon, it is rich in omega-3 fatty acids, and it can help reduce inflammation. It can also help with boosting your mood. And so I can get I can get behind almost all of those except for the salmon. But if you love salmon, hey, that's a great another reason to eat it. But I do love the fact that there are foods that can boost your mood, which can also help break through and maybe give you some inspiration.
Huh. The interesting thing is I buy these little, I think they're Gardelli, I don't know how you say it, dark chocolate squares, and I'll have one almost every afternoon. And
Yeah.
you know what? I didn't realize that, I have them while I'm writing.
Yeah. And
Huh.
it's funny because our last episode with Linda Rosen, she
Yeah.
says that when she's writing, she likes dark chocolate.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, we have this coming up in an episode." And
Yeah,
but
that's
it is
funny.
amazing because, what you put in your body,
Mm,
let it try to help even if this isn't about writing. Even if you're,
yeah.
if you're not a writer and you're just looking to have, boost your moods or to, feel a little bit better, do it from inside.
Or some other creative art, music,
Well, well,
painting.
hopefully this will help, not just, the audience. Hopefully this is inspiring me to get back out there. And we have the show notes. And again, we've got some great 3 articles about how other people have dealt with their own author writer burnout. And then also we've also included other foods. There's a lot of other foods that I didn't, include that, can just again help with this process. And I think with our do now, Donna, you're normally the person that does this, but
Mm,
I think do now is just kind of just watch out, for if
mm,
this is happening to you, and whether you're a songwriter or you write poetry or you write books like Donna and I, be thinking of these little things that can kind of creep in, and
mhm.
also make a list of things that might help you, not the 10 that we discussed. Find a list that, what might inspire you? How can you break free of maybe writer's block or, as my case, author burnout?
Love that.
So,
Um,
Donna, can you tell us about our next episode?
I sure can. So, our next episode, we're going to explore a variety of genres and what is distinct to them to help readers, figure out which genres that they should be drawn to and to help writers decide what they want to write.
I'm excited about that because I've been reading some books outside of my normal
Mhm.
kind of women's fiction, romance kind. I've been reading some thrillers,
Awesome.
so which is not like me. So
Mm.
again, everyone, you can find us as always on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, and on Instagram. And again, Donna, thank you so much, and everyone, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Hope Gibbs.
And I'm Donna Norman Carbone. It's time for you to get to work.
We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with another tip from your author friends.